Very warm Dubuque welcome as who both the NRA and Wall Street names public enemy number one, Governor Martin O'Malley.
Thank you guys very, very much. It's great to be in Dubuque. We missed our turn twice. And I finally said, stop the car. That's the third time passing an Irish bar. I can't let that happen again. So it's wonderful to be with all of you. I feel like I need a crate or something to stand up on.
Stand on the pool table.
I don't want to stand on the pool table.
Why don't you stand on
Those are his
I
footprints.
think I can.
Go ahead.
Might be too
Think I'll
high.
fall?
No.
We got it.
Okay.
Belly's on the ring.
There you go.
Serve. All right.
Hey, look, it's wonderful to be with all of you guys. Thank you for coming out. I want to thank you for what you do for our country, most especially. You all keep me going. I love your state. I love its beauty. I love the warmth and the kindness of its people. And what I like most of all about Iowa is that in Iowa, every individual voter matters. And you guys make up your own mind, don't you?
Yeah.
That's
You're
right.
not intimidated by polls. You're not intimidated by big money. And you're not going to let some executive at NBC tell you which presidential candidates you get to hear from. Right?
Cheers.
So I am looking forward to the next 24 days because this is when it all happens. And I've seen you guys do it before. You've regarded it as your birthright that you get to upset the apple cart, surprise the pundits, and lift up a new leader. That's what you did 8 years ago, and that's what I need you to do now. I didn't come here to praise you. I came here to challenge you. To challenge you because these are not normal times in our nation's politics. When the leading frontrunner of the Republican Party finds that it's advantageous for him to make increasingly more fascist appeals to watch his poll numbers go up, that should tell all of us that this is deadly serious and urgent work that we have to do for our country. And I need you guys to do it. Because in 24 days, it's not the big money that decides, it's you that decides. So I'm excited about the future. And there's usually only 2 tickets out of Iowa, and one of them goes to the candidate that can beat expectations. And with 3 of us left in this race, there's only one of us who can still beat expectations. So look, let me share with you a couple thoughts about our country, and then let's do some Q&A. We doing Q&A, John? John, I want to thank John Murphy so much. First guy to step up and endorse my campaign. John, thank you for your leadership. And thank Mitchell for giving me his bunk bed the last time I was through town. So look, let me share a couple thoughts with you. 8 years ago, Iowa, you lifted up a new leader in Barack Obama to move our country forward. We were this close to being plunged into a second Great Depression, and you brought forward a new president. Not anybody else, it was your choice. And President Obama's made the best decisions possible to move our country forward. And thanks to his good work and your work, we now have been able to see and accomplish 70 months in a row of positive month-over-month job growth. And that is the very, very good news. We're the only species on the planet without full employment. So jobs are important. But the tough news of our times that we need to own, if we're going to have the credibility to build upon President Obama and Vice President Biden's work, is this: that a majority of us, 70% of us, because of the depth of the recession, because of bad trickle-down economic policies for 30 years before President Obama, 70% of us today are earning the same or less than we did 12 years ago. So yeah, people are apprehensive. They're pessimistic. And they see our gridlocked national politics, they see our Congress, our so-called House of Representatives, acting in very unrepresentative ways. And yeah, it's easy to become depressed. But look, If you become discouraged about our national politics, let me tell you this. I travel all over the country, and I encourage you to do as I do, and that is to talk to our young people under 30. Because you will rarely find among them young Americans that want to deny climate change or think their government shouldn't do something about it. You'll rarely find young people under 30 that want to bash new American immigrants like that carnival barker Donald Trump. You'll rarely find young people under 30 that want to slam America's door in the face of Syrian refugee families or deny rights to gay couples or their kids. So all of this tells me that we're actually moving to a much more compassionate, much more connected, a much more generous place. We have only need of new leadership and a renewed faith in one another to cross this threshold into a new era of American progress. I was raised by two of the most generous and decent people God ever put on the planet. I was born one of 6 children, to Tom and Barbara O'Malley. And back in those days, that was considered a relatively small Irish Catholic family. In fact, only 6 kids. They thought at Our Lady of Lourdes School we might be, at Our Lady of Lourdes Church, we might be Lutheran spies. We only had 6 kids in the family. But my parents, who Tom Brokaw dubbed the greatest generation, because they were born in the Depression, won the Second World War. My mom, at the age of 17, joined the Civil Air Patrol. That was her service in the war. And got her pilot's license as a 17-year-old. My dad flew 33 missions over Japan, but neither of them would ever take that title of greatest generation. They taught their kids, they taught us that every generation has the responsibility and the duty to do great things for their country. They taught us to love family, to love God, and to love our country. They taught us to understand that there is dignity in every person, to understand that we all share a common good, and that we have to help each other if we are going to succeed. Unlike some of the other candidates in this race, my story is not a story of Democratic conversion. It is a story of Democratic upbringing. I'm proud of the party of John Kennedy, proud of the party of Roosevelt, proud of the party of Barack Obama, and I know that only our party can lead us forward. And my experience is not that of a congressperson. I have not been part of the gridlock of the last 40 years that was coming. My background is not that of a cabinet secretary or advisor. My experience is as a mayor and as a governor, bringing people together, getting things done, saving lives, passing a living wage, raising the minimum wage, extending collective bargaining to more people rather than fewer, making it easier for people to vote rather than harder, passing marriage equality, passing the DREAM Act, passing a state-level climate change bill, passing comprehensive gun safety legislation with a ban on combat assault weapons. And the Republican governors hate it when I say this, but defending the #1 median income in America all through the recession, a AAA bond rating, and named by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, my state, #1 in innovation and entrepreneurship 3 years in a row with a faster rate of job creation than the states governed by Republicans to our north and south out of the recession. So, all of those things were actions and not words. What does that have to do with your choice, Iowa, in 24 days? I believe it has a great deal, because the phrase I hear, 2 phrases all across our country, are the phrases new leadership and getting things done. We cannot be this dissatisfied with our gridlock national politics or an economy where we're working harder and not getting ahead and think that a resort to old ideologies or old names is going to bring us forward. That's not the way our country works. We need new leadership to move us forward. My wife and I have 4 great kids. Grace and Tara and William and Jack. And like you, there's nothing we wouldn't do to give them a better future. The great poet laureate of the American dream once asked, is a dream a life that don't come true? Or is it something worse? For a lot of Americans, the American dream is in danger of becoming a lie, and it doesn't need to be that way. We must return to our true selves and remember that our economy is not money, it's people. And therefore we must take the actions necessary to make wage and labor policies again in our nation that allow wages to go up. What am I talking about? I'm talking about raising the minimum wage and raising it to $15 an hour, however we can, wherever we can. I'm talking about about equal pay for equal work for men and women in our nation. I'm talking about expanding paid family leave and expanding Social Security so our people can live in dignity. And another one I have to mention. You want to make wages go up rather than down? Well, I say this at Murphy's Tap. That one of the geniuses of our nation is that in every generation, we allow the best and the brightest from all over the world to come to our country, live in the full light of an American economy, and make our nation better. So if we want wages to go up, we've got to get 11 million of our neighbors out of the underground shadow economy by passing comprehensive immigration reform. Secondly, the investments in our country. Our formula of actions says that in every generation we make the investments only we can make in our country so our country can expand opportunity, so our country can give our kids better opportunities. What are some of those investments? Investments in infrastructure that put people to work, that pay decent wages, that are sourced with American-made materials. I'm talking about investments in research and development, human solutions and cures. Human solutions to human problems more widely distributed. And I'm talking about one other important one as well. And that is that in every generation we educate our kids at higher and better levels. Give our workers better skills to fill the jobs of today. This is a historic moment in Dubuque. No candidate for president has ever appeared in front of you in Dubuque with a greater mountain of college debt over his head than I do. And it's not from my education, it's from my kids. My dad went to college on a GI Bill. I went to college virtually debt-free. My daughters went to college on a mountain of bills. Their mother and I were very proud of them on graduation day. And we're going to be proud every month for the rest of our natural lives. We got to laugh because it hurts too hard to cry. But it doesn't need to be that way. As governor, our state did a better job than any other state holding down college tuition. I actually know something about this topic. And that's why I put forward a plan to move America to a debt-free college as an option for every kid in the country within the next 5 years. Third and finally, and then let's open it up a little bit, the great challenges of our time. And there are many. We will defeat ISIL and any other iteration of terror. But we will only defeat these rising threats and these rising evils if we hold true to our American values. Not if we surrender them to fascist appeals or the demagoguery of flash-in-the-pan politicians. We need to hold true to our American values. The prescriptions that Donald Trump offers of issuing ID cards for all American Muslims, cutting off travel for American Muslims. That's not the path of our country forward. We've seen that path. Who's next? Catholics? Trade unionists? Not in my kids' country. The second great challenge. Second great challenge is climate change. The greatest business opportunity to come to the United States of America in 100 years. And look at how Iowa is pointing the way forward once again. 35% of your energy now comes from clean Iowa wind, employing 5,000 people in jobs that didn't exist 15 years ago. The cleaner, greener energy future is a future of more security, more prosperity, and more jobs, not less. And I am the only candidate so far, first, and let us hope not the last, to put forward a plan to move us to 100% clean electric grid by 2050 and create 5 million jobs along the way. So folks, these are among the 15 strategic goals that I put out for our country in your state of Iowa, that state that points the way forward for our nation. These are the goals that are worthy of a truly great people. Things like eradicating childhood hunger in the next 5 years, making national service a universal option so we can cut youth unemployment in half within the next 3 years. Cutting in half the number of Americans who died because of gun deaths and gun violence. These are the ambitions that are worthy of a great people. These are the things that will restore the American dream and make it real and truthful and alive. Let me close with this, or maybe open it up to question and answer with this. Look, there's a lot of people who look me in the eye and tell me that, Governor, you face a tough fight. Well, there's a lot of people that would also look you in the eye, I seldom back, and tell you that you face a tough fight, giving your kids and giving your grandkids a better future than what your parents and grandparents gave you. Well, you know what? I kind of like a tough fight. I've always been drawn to a tough fight. I didn't run for mayor of Baltimore in 1999 because our city was doing well. I ran because people were getting killed. And I put our city on a better path. I didn't lead my state through easy times. I led my state through a recession. And I brought people together to get good and meaningful things done. Sometimes putting together votes of Democrats and Republicans to do things that we had never been able to do before in easier times. So I like a tough fight. I think the toughness of the fight is the way the hidden God has of telling us we're actually fighting for something worth saving. Our country's future is worth saving. The American dream is worth saving. Our children's future and this planet is worth saving. And you and I, my friends, are up for this fight. In 24 days, it's not the big money that decides, not the pundits, not NBC executive. It's we, the people. I have put my candidacy on the line because I trust the intelligence and the goodness of the people of Iowa. I've seen you do it before, and I believe that you will do it again. Help me in this campaign. Help me move our country forward, lift up new leadership, and move America forward once again. Thank you guys very much. Welcome to Iowa. I'm a little worried. I don't think I should stand on this thing and drink with it.
We got your back.
Just safeguard my. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
I am very concerned about money in the election. I wonder what your stance is on money in elections and getting the money out of the electoral process.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd say one of the 15 goals that I put forward is to move us to publicly financed congressional elections within the next 5 years. And I honestly believe that members of Congress would actually enjoy their service a lot more if they weren't spending 20 hours a week as telemarketers. And when you consider how many decisions they make, it is a small price to pay to move the ball forward. And I think the people are actually ahead of the politicians on this. On another score, I'm the only presidential candidate taking matching funds. And as you might have guessed, I am not the candidate of Wall Street. I've never represented Wall Street. I'm for reinstating a modern version of Glass-Steagall. And that doesn't draw me a lot of money, but it's what needs to be done for our country. I also believe that, and when it comes to appointing Supreme Court justices, I promise you, anybody that I appoint will know the difference between a person and a corporation. We need to overturn Citizens United. Yes, sir. Gentlemen, glasses and beard.
Thank you. Building upon that, why is it imperative that we separate the banks that finance our houses from the banks that finance Wall Street by reestablishing Glass-Steagall?
Yeah, this is why I believe it's important. For 70 years, we understood that we shouldn't be on the hook, shouldn't put Main Street on the hook for speculative and very risky behavior on Wall Street. And for a long time, we understood that you need to have cops on the beat on Wall Street. Somehow we got away from that in the late 1990s. They bullied through an ability to combine speculative banking with traditional banking, and they created a lot of risky instruments. Any of you seen the movie The Big Short?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good movie. It's a scary movie because we still haven't done the things that we should have done after learning the lesson of the big crash. And one of those things is to institute a modern version of Glass-Steagall. Once they repealed Glass-Steagall in Congress in the late 1990s and under a Democratic administration, the size of the banks, of the 6 big banks, skyrocketed from about controlling 15% of assets compared to GDP to 65% in just the hands of 6 banks. That's what created too big to fail, too big to jail, apparently too big to manage. And if a bank's too big to fail, too big to jail, and too big to manage, then it's too damn big, and it needs to be broken up. Yes, Ms. Riley.
Thank you. Governor, what can we do to try to prevent, assuming NBC goes down the path that some is before they're considering limiting the debate to 2 candidates, what can we do to put pressure on them? Email address, executive at NBC we should be writing to let them know Iowans do not, we only had 3 debates so far as this.
Right, and only one in Iowa. First time you were ever told you only get one.
Iowa was so big with the formal, and the next one was, the Sunday or Saturday before Christmas. So it's bad enough that we haven't been able to get the message out, but we can contact them to at least put pressure on them.
Yeah, I think we'll be sending out an email
Okay.
and asking you to send that out to friends and to write in there. The news was that the NBC decided they would create a criteria that you had to be over a certain percent consistently in a number of polls in order to be in the next debate. A criteria, if they had applied it in the past, would have kept Jimmy Carter from being in debates, would have kept Gary Hart from being in debates pre-caucus, would have kept John Kerry from being in debates pre-caucus. I mean, even these. Bad enough that they limit us to only 4 debates. We've never had an undemocratic year like that from the edict of the party chair. And then they hide them behind football games. And then the format itself is rigged. They tell you, look, we're going to ask 80% of the questions to the 2 front runners. So if you feel you have something to say, you're going to have to jump in. And now they say that they think they want to have this criteria, and they might be trying to set it up to keep me off the stage in South Carolina. So I hope you all will write in, press back against that.
You know what I always tell people?
What's that?
You could stand on your head naked, and the press wouldn't be any answer for you in the debate. You can use that from now
All
on.
right, I might use that. But look, gang, what's that?
Don't you think that if Bernie thinks that he's a real progressive, he should refuse to be in a debate that you are not at this stage?
Well, they both said publicly they'd like me to be there, so I'm grateful for that. And I plan on doing it. Look, we found the highest just before Christmas. A public poll came out showing us at 10% in Iowa, which means that's higher than Jimmy Carter, Gary Hart, or John Kerry at the same time in the run-up, I do believe. So we have organized all over your state. I have 45 staff. That'll swell to 55 over the next 10 days. And after Christmas got here, I can see that people in Iowa are, that Rubik's Cube of decision making is starting to spin. And you guys always have a way of surprising the pundits. So all that matters now is organizing and getting out there, spreading the word. And with the internet and all those tools that we have, we need to beat expectations. We need to recraft this race as a 3-person race on caucus night. And I know you guys know how to do it. You know, NBC can have their pollsters, but they can't have Iowa. I'm going to let the people of Iowa decide who their next president is. Yes, sir. Are you the owner?
No, I'm not. Guilty right there.
Just a customer.
You're the owner. You're the owner. What's your name?
I'm Sarah. This is Brett.
Sarah and Brett, thank you for letting us take over your place.
Dubuque is a big union town, but with our free trade, I think they took away a lot of our union jobs. Being a Democrat in the union, which you're supporting, how can you stop that free trade to bring our jobs back to Dubuque?
Yeah,
which we need.
Great
Flex
question.
Bill is one that took one away.
Yeah, look, I am opposed to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I was opposed to it 2 years ago, and I never flip-flopped on it. We need to learn the lessons from NAFTA and these other things. We don't do a very good job as a nation of even enforcing these trade laws after they go through. The only one we ever took for not respecting labor standards that were contained in a trade agreement was with Guatemala. It's still going on 7 years later. There's nothing in the Trans-Pacific Partnership that would stop currency manipulation. But there are plenty of provisions in there that let multinational corporations sue governments in order to evade standards for workers and standards for the environment. I'm opposed to trade deals that our Congress is forced to vote on before we're even allowed to read them. And I believe good trade deals for the United States of America are trade deals that raise standards for the environment and raise standards for labor, not those that lower them. We need to build our own economy. We need to produce what we consume. We need to make sure we protect our economy from high labor input products that we open our markets to for no good reason. Well, you want to compete with Vietnam? Let me tell you something. I've been to Vietnam. I've led a trade delegation to Vietnam. I've led trade delegations all over the world. But in Vietnam, they don't even let people join unions. And we want our workers to compete with Vietnamese labor? I don't see where that makes sense for the United States of America. I'm opposed to these bad trade deals.
We'll bring union jobs back. That's what I'm saying. Bring union jobs back.
We need to and we also need to modernize our National Labor Relations Act. We need to put teeth into our Justice Department. Look, there is a causal connection between the decline in union membership and decline in wages. One of the keys to America's success is that until very recently, we made it easier for workers and not harder to join labor unions and bargain collectively. I passed fair share in my state as governor. I passed it in a recession. I extended prevailing wage even to school construction contracts. I passed a Made in America bill so that when we made bigger investments in our infrastructure, that material was sourced in the United States of America. And guess what? We had the highest median income in America even all through the recession. These are the things that are good for wages for all of us. Yes, sir. Do you really like the Redskins?
I really do.
Where are you from?
I'm actually from right up the hill here, but I lived out in D.C. for a while.
Oh, did you? Where at? As we say at home.
Fort Myer, Virginia.
Fort Myer. Oh, that's
makes
Virginia.
it better then.
That's very far away from
It's still
Maryland.
Redskins country.
Still Redskin. Everything south of the Mason-Dixon line was Redskin country
Pretty
for a long
much
time.
up until the Baltimore Ravens.
George Allen used to be for the Bears. He used to work for the Bears, so.
I've been to the games.
Yes, sir. Question or answer?
Where do you stand on universal health care? Because I know there's a lot of debate about it right now on whether it's good or bad. What is your opinion on it, and is there anything you would do to fix it?
Golly, I hope so. Look, no program was ever enacted in perfect condition.
Right.
How many times have we gone back to tweak Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security? And this Congress will not be here forever. We have an opportunity to elect a new Congress this year. We have an opportunity to bring forward new leadership. I've not been a divider. If I were a divider, I wouldn't have gotten the things done in my state that I got done. It took us 3 times to repeal the death penalty, for example, but we did it with some Republican votes. So I know how to bring people together to get things done. And this is a very divided time in our nation's history. But the 3 of us, I have the best shot at being able to find a way forward here. And when it comes to health care, look, this is what I think we need to do. I think we need to get more people covered. I think there's some things that we need to repeal, like that Cadillac tax that hurt labor plans. That was an ill-considered little move. I also think that we need to take actions that encourage, create new products so that the first out-of-pocket expenses are covered. Because right now we have a situation where with the higher co-pays and the higher deductibles, people feel like they're paying more and getting lesser value and not able to get the things they need to stay healthy. So those are among the tweaks. Let me tell you the other big one. And they didn't let me to the debates. I'm the only guy up there on the stage, the only person on that stage who actually had to implement this on a statewide level. And we're doing something pretty cool that's actually working. But in the 2 debates, they didn't have time to hear from me on that one. They cut them off at that. But in our state, we moved, one of the biggest drivers of healthcare costs, and you all know we pay more in healthcare costs than any other nation on the planet. And yet, our outcomes in terms of wellness is like 27th among those nations. And one of the bigger drivers of cost at the center of things is the institutions, the hospitals. So we moved in our state with the Affordable Care Act and a Medicare waiver and having an all-payer system where we have a rate-setting commission where everybody pays the same rate for whatever the procedure is. And using that big data, we moved all 46 of our acute care hospitals away from fee-for-service. So instead of paying hospitals like you would pay a hotel, like how many beds they can keep filled up in the course of the year, instead we give them global payments for all of their Medicaid and Medicare patients within that hospital catchment area, and then they are encouraged to reduce avoidable hospital readmissions, which are big cost drivers, especially for diabetes, asthma, congestive heart failure. In our first year of trying it, we exceeded our goal. Instead of, we reduced avoidable hospital readmissions by 11.5%. We saved Medicare $110 million, and there was an article about it in the New England Journal of Medicine that said, "I'll be damned. This is actually working, and this is the way forward for our country." Yes,
Healthcare, what are your thoughts on regulation of the pharmaceutical industry? Because I know that that's a place where we all typically pay out the most out of pocket is our pharmacy bills.
Yeah, sure is. The questions about prescription drugs. I don't wish ill on other people, but I tell you, I did feel a great sense of justice watching that guy get arrested for jacking up the price of that pill by 5,000. Behavior like that should be illegal. And behavior like that needs to be prosecuted. But we need to find, and I think look, we need to take the handcuffs off of our own ability for our own Medicare and Medicaid and veterans programs to negotiate for better drug prices. Because a government and a nation lives a lot longer than a human being. And we can smooth out some of these bumps. Right now, what we tend to do, traditionally what we've done is we give the drug manufacturers an exclusive, protect their patent, and then they price their drugs at whatever the market kind of demands. They try to make as much profit before that expires and it goes to generic. There's got to be a better way to smooth out that incentive that gives access to people that need those drugs. And it guarantees a rate of return, but at the same time, allows people that need those medicines to have those medicines. A lot of that research was our research, the basic research that allowed those things to happen. So that's what I think we need to do on that score. Yes, sir. And tell me your name again.
Nick.
Nick, good to see you again, Nick.
Listen, nice to see you again, my friend.
Good to see you.
And you gave the best damn speech at the JJ dinner of all three.
God bless your good taste in JJ dinner talks.
My question is, we've been involved in the Middle East for 15 years plus. What's your assessment of how we're treating the current people we're serving and their family needs, as well as the veterans coming back with hardships in various forms, physical and mental? What would you do to fix the VA system?
Yeah, the question in the back is, what would we do to fix the VA system? Systems throughout our government are operating under an old mode of government. Very bureaucratic, very hierarchical. Big, pyramids of command and control where things get done by orders from the top on the basis of because I said so.
Yeah.
The new way of governing, a modern way of governing, actually embraces new technologies, geographic information systems, openness, transparency, accountability, so that people don't fall through the cracks. And you see this revolution happening in private industry. You see it happening in a lot of municipalities and big cities across our country. I was an innovator in that when we invented CityStat in the city of Baltimore. They gave us the, here's something impressive. They gave us the Innovations in Government Award from the Kennedy School at Harvard. It's 2 H's on Harvard. And you want what the big innovation was? We started measuring the outputs of what government does on a daily and weekly basis instead of just the inputs. We were able to start running plays by making sure the databases of those individual silos of agencies landed on the same map. serving people. We stripped the anonymity away from those we were serving. We gave customer accountability numbers so that people could check on where their case was. And we created dashboards so that all of our citizens could see whether we were doing any better today than we were before. I brought that same method called STAT to state government, and I intend, with your help, Iowa, to bring FedStat to a White House near you. And no department needs it more than Veterans Affairs. When our men and women one of the 15 strategic goals I've set to move our country forward has to do with full employment for veterans. I found at the state level that that is the best entree to our veterans who come home with oftentimes multiple issues that need to be addressed. We found that the best portal into that person's life is the job services, the job placement, and those things. When our men and women are discharged now and they're DD 214, there's not even a box for your email. They oftentimes put a phone number or parent's phone number, and then they become ghost people to us. And then we're going and trying to reach them when they show up in our jails or in our emergency rooms. We can do better than that. We need a re-entry program for our veterans when they come back. We need to place them in jobs when they come home and value their lives.
So you mentioned ISIL. And no doubt about it, our foreign policy is a little bit skewed these days. In fact, there's big clamoring for more blood, more treasure to be spent over there in the Middle East, more war. And that, what do you think would be the solution? I just read a book called Reset. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it talks about, developing a better foreign policy over there in the Middle East.
Yeah, thank you. Question in the back is about foreign policy. I gave a talk to a group of our returning veterans. They joined together when they came back home after guarding other people's oil wells in the Middle East. And they said, we need a better foreign policy. They call themselves the Truman Project. I laid out a new foreign policy for our country, a new national security strategy, and both of those things depend, of course, on our making ourselves stronger at home. But in essence, this is what I believe. I believe we need a new foreign policy of engagement and collaboration with like-minded people around the world. And global terror is not the only threat that we need to join forces with other nations to confront. Climate change is another. Pandemic is another. Keeping sea lanes open and free from piracy, that's another. And all of those things shouldn't be entirely on our back, but we're indispensable to forging the new alliances on a regionalized way that can accomplish the things necessary to protect the global commons that we share. And when it comes to ISIL, I believe that the nations that are on the ground there have the responsibility to put forward the regional forces to take back what has now become a safe haven in the vacuum that sprung up after the collapse of the Syrian economy, the extended drought, the civil war, and those other things, which leads me to the second piece, which is threat reduction. We need a whole-of-government approach and a much smarter way of anticipating rising threats before they rise to a level where we find ourselves dragged into these geopolitical confrontations or seem like the only tool that we have to pull is a division of Marines. General Dempsey in his retirement said we need a whole-of-government approach. What does that mean? It means we need to dial up human intelligence. We have not invested adequately in human intelligence. Therefore, when regimes fall, or when we help in toppling a regime, we have no idea what's coming next, let alone what's coming in the second, third, or fourth effects, or who the new leaders are coming up. Human intelligence is a critical underpinning of a smarter national security strategy of threat reduction. But we also need to dial up sustainable development, and we also need to dial up diplomacy. We need a whole-of-government approach. I intend to make the head of USAID a cabinet-level position that reports directly to the president. One more, maybe we'll do lightning round and we'll get 2 in. Three in, okay? You were up, you had your hand up before. We're going to go to the back and then we're going to make our way up front. Yes, sir?
Tax reform.
Tax reform. Look, here's what I believe. I believe that we need a simplified corporate tax. I believe it's not right that small businesses pay a corporate tax and that the big corporations get off paying nada, zero, nothing. I'm opposed to to that ISDS crap in the trade deal, I think we need to fight back hard on these inversions. They should be called invasions. These multinationals that buy a little corporation over in Ireland or someplace to move their, not that I have anything against Ireland, to move their tax bills abroad to shelter their income.
Like
we
Apple?
shouldn't allow them to defer that sort of stuff. Yeah, like who was it?
Apple.
Apple,
Apple's
Pfizer.
big, yes.
It's a lot of.
And there is
yeah.
a bill that Dick
Bunch of
Durbin
them.
has in the Senate. I support that bill. But look, I think the bigger problem that we have in our taxes is this. There's a big entitlement we can no longer afford as a nation. And that is the entitlement that millionaires and billionaires feel that they have to pay a much lower marginal rate on their income and an even lower marginal rate when it comes to the money they make on investing their money. That didn't, so what I'm talking about is a higher marginal rate on millionaires and people that earn more than $1 million. Under Ronald Reagan's first term, it was 70%. Today, I think it's roughly 39. Taking that to 45%, taxing for the most part capital gains at the same rate as hard work from sweat and toil would generate about $800 billion for our nation's investments in our transportation and our infrastructure, debt-free college. That's what we need to do. We need a rebalancing. We have never reached a time since the Gilded Age where there was so much wealth concentrated in the hands of so few that it's literally sucking opportunity out of the nation of the many. We should not be a country that has an economy of the few, by the few, and for the few. It needs to be about all of us.
We have the same question. So basically, we know that you want to absorb future student debt. What are you going to do for pre-existing student debt?
We should let all of us who are in those Parent Plus loans, paying 7 and 8% interest, or people paying their own, we should let kids refinance and parents refinance at much lower interest rates, first of all. We should make available for them the option, which I think should be the routine way of doing things, where kids go into an income-based repayment plan, where the debt is forgiven at the end of whatever that 20 or 30-year period of time is.
What about our soldiers, anybody that goes in to fight for our country, going to get the benefits that the illegal aliens get?
Yeah, well, what I encountered with a lot of our returning veterans was a lot of times we weren't able to connect them to the benefits. We need to do a much better job by our veterans. We said that earlier. Look, I come from Maryland, and in Annapolis, in the State House there, that was where George Washington resigned his commission. They have his words printed there. And it was a seminal moment in the earliest days of our republic. 2/3 of his words were dedicated to how shabbily we were treating our Revolutionary War veterans. We need to do better by our veterans. We need to have full employment for our veterans, and we need to focus multiple agencies, state and federal, DOD and veterans, on making sure that every veteran, when they come out of the service, has a job placement or retraining path or a college path. There are not that many people. This is a finance. What's that?
They should at least get what a legal alien gets.
They should get their college paid for, I believe. I mean, and anything else they need. Somebody else? Did you have one? No. You got it? All right. Well, look, gang. You want to do one more?
Yeah. So I like the idea of raising the minimum wage, but what about the cliff effect of social service benefits? So if you go from 10 to 15, you can actually afford to have a raise. Like if your child care subsidy, your stamps get cut, you can't afford to get a better job because you actually lose spending power if you're that single.
Yeah, well, we need to adjust that with the minimum wage.
But even at $15 an hour, if my social services get cut, like food stamps, child care subsidy, I can't afford to get a raise. So what do we do to fix the social service delivery system for people in poverty to disincentivize, to stop the disincentive?
For work. Yeah. We need to make work pay. And that's what we need to do. We need to balance both. I'd love to talk with you after. And I think we might be talking past each other.
Salary cap. What about the salary cap?
Mental health. While I was governor of Maryland, we increased public access to mental health by 80%. I learned in combating drug addiction that you can't. Combating a horrible addiction problem that you can't combat drug addiction without also treating the whole person and the mental health, otherwise you're playing whack-a-mole. And as a federal government, we need to It's a shame the way that mental health services vary from state to state. It's like it depends on your governor's policy whether or not you have decent mental health in your state. And we need to find a better way to achieve parity, to create a block grant program that keeps states in the game. Hey, look, gang, I'm going to hang out some more because I've never been known to leave an Irish bar early.
Get over here!
And part of this race is about integrity and authenticity. So, if I got that. So, look, who's our organizer here, Kevin?
Hi.
Bobby. This is Bobby. He's our organizer here. Together in the next 24 days, gang, we have the ability to make history. We have the ability to beat expectations and change this race. I need your help. Thank you very much.